How dare you ask for my ID? Do you know who I am? The CEO said to the black security guard just doing his work. But little did she know she just made the biggest mistake of her career. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more jaw-dropping stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's get back to our main character. It's 6:45 a.m. The city is still half asleep, but inside the glass and steel tower of Steel Dynamics Global Headquarters, everything gleams. Marble floors. Chrome elevators. Automated greetings echoing through the lobby. Camera pans across revolving doors as the voiceover begins. Have you ever been dismissed so completely that you started to question your own worth, until one small moment revealed who truly held the power? The morning hum is clinical, efficient, almost surgical. And at the center of it all stands Marcus Johnson. He stands where everyone else merely passes. Same corner. Same uniform. Same quiet routine. But what no one realizes is that he sees everything. The badge on his chest says security. But his eyes? They're trained, not just to scan IDs, but to scan people. The subtle hesitation before a greeting. The shift in tone when titles enter the room. The way respect changes color. Marcus Johnson. 42. Ex-military intelligence. Behavioral analysis background. On paper, a night shift guard. In truth, the board's invisible measure of integrity. Every morning, he watches the city's elite flow through the lobby like clockwork. Armani suits. Handcrafted heels. Coffee cups that cost more than his day's pay. They nod at him, mechanical, hollow gestures. Not out of respect, but routine. But today isn't routine. At exactly 6:47 a.m., Marcus activates Lockdown Protocol 6. A silent test, a system-wide simulation meant to expose one thing. Bias in access control. Who gets waved through without question? Who gets stopped? Who gets dismissed? Each encounter becomes data. Every word, recorded. Every smirk, noted. Upstairs, unseen by everyone below, a small red light flickers on in the boardroom. The directors are watching. They want to see how their people behave when they think no one important is watching. And down here, at the ground floor of power, one man in a uniform is about to show them everything they need to know. 6:49 a.m., the moment begins. It began the same way it always did, a cold gust of air sweeping through the lobby as the morning light spilled through glass walls. But today, the air carried something sharper. Something colder. Victoria Steele walked into the building like she owned the air itself. Every sound seemed to fade as she entered, footsteps, chatter, even the soft hum of the elevators. It was as if the entire tower inhaled and refused to breathe again until she was gone. She didn't need to announce herself. Power already had a voice, and it spoke through her every move. The way her heels struck the marble wasn't just walking, it was punctuation. Each step said, "I belong here." Each glance, "You don't." Victoria was the kind of person who believed efficiency meant looking straight ahead. No greetings. No pauses. No wasted seconds acknowledging the people who kept her world running. The receptionist offered a nervous smile she didn't see. Two junior analysts straightened as she passed, clutching their coffee cups like shields. She glided through them, untouched, untouchable, wearing confidence like armor. Her designer coat flowed behind her like a flag, her phone already alive with emails and numbers and people who mattered more. But just beyond the polished floors and morning pleasantries stood a man in uniform. A man she didn't recognize, though he'd been there longer than her promotion announcement. Marcus Johnson. He'd been at that same post for months, quiet, steady, unnoticed. To her, he was part of the background, like the marble columns or the security scanner. Something functional. Forgettable. As she approached the checkpoint, the sensor light blinked red, a soft tone that shouldn't have existed in her world. Normally, it flashed green for executives. Her access was supposed to be automatic. Seamless. Effortless. Her stride faltered, just slightly. She frowned. "Good morning, ma'am," Marcus said, his voice calm and professional. "May I see your ID, please?" It was a polite question. Routine. The kind of request every employee heard at least once a week. But not her. Not Victoria Steele. Her head turned slowly, her disbelief settling into a look that could slice through glass. She stared at him like he'd just spoken another language. "My ID?" she repeated, as if testing the word itself. "Yes, ma'am," Marcus said evenly. "Company policy requires all staff to verify identity during access checks." And there it was, the shift. The spark. That small fracture in composure that turns arrogance into indignation. "How dare you ask for my ID?" she said finally, each word dipped in venom. "Do you know who I am?" Marcus didn't flinch. He'd heard variations of that question before, always from people who needed to remind the world how high they'd climbed. But the truth was, yes, he did know who she was. He knew her file, her record, her decisions, her complaints. He knew the way her name carried both prestige and controversy inside this company's walls. He even knew that upstairs, someone was watching this exact moment unfold. Yet still, his voice stayed level. "I do, ma'am. And that's exactly why I need your ID." Silence. For the first time, Victoria Steele, the woman used to commanding rooms with a glance, found herself standing still. No one spoke. Even the air seemed unsure what to do next. Around them, a few employees tried to pretend they weren't watching. But everyone could feel it, the tension wrapping around the lobby like static. 1 second too long. One word too many. And in that stillness, something irreversible began. Because sometimes, the biggest shifts in power don't start with a boardroom speech or a grand decision. They start with a moment just like this. When someone powerful forgets that respect goes both ways. And as Victoria glared at the man before her, the one she believed was beneath her, she had no idea that this single encounter was already being logged, recorded, and quietly transmitted to a boardroom upstairs. A boardroom where her title meant nothing. A boardroom where Marcus's every note carried more weight than her reputation ever could. What she didn't know was that the man she just insulted wasn't just security. He was the test. And she had already failed it. The lobby had gone still, so still you could almost hear the air hum. Somewhere behind the reception desk, someone coughed, then pretended to type. The sound of a single coffee cup being placed on a counter echoed too loudly in the vast marble space. Marcus didn't move. He stood like a metronome of discipline, spine straight, shoulders squared, eyes calm. He'd been trained for this, not by the company, but by years of standing at the front lines where a wrong word could ignite chaos. This wasn't about ego. It was about order. Procedure. Respect. He spoke again, voice even, respectful, but resolute. "Good morning, ma'am. May I see your ID badge, please?" Victoria Steele didn't answer immediately. She continued scrolling on her phone, one manicured finger sliding across the screen as if he hadn't spoken at all. Seconds stretched. The silence was deliberate, the silence of someone used to being obeyed without question. Finally, without looking up, she said a single word. "Excuse me?" "Your ID, ma'am," Marcus repeated, not louder, just firmer. "New system rollout today." Requires direct scan. That got her attention. Her head lifted, her eyes narrowing, the faintest trace of disbelief flickering behind her composure. It wasn't the request itself that offended her. It was the tone, the idea that someone she didn't know, someone beneath her, would ask her for proof. She blinked once, twice, slowly, like she was deciding whether this was a joke. Then she smiled, not kindly, but the kind of smile that hides condescension behind charm. "I don't think you understand," she said softly, her voice smooth and clipped. "I'm Victoria Steele, the CEO." The words fell like a verdict. She expected them to be the end of the conversation. Marcus nodded once. No surprise. No apology. Just acknowledgement. "Yes, ma'am," he said. "That's exactly why I need to verify." A faint crease appeared between her eyebrows. She wasn't used to explanations that didn't bend around her. "You're asking me for ID?" she said again, the words heavier this time, each one edged with irritation. "Yes, ma'am," he replied. "Company-wide protocol." Her sigh cut through the air like a blade. "Do you even know who you're talking to?" Marcus didn't blink. "Yes, I do." Something in the way he said it stopped her. It wasn't defiance, there was no trace of challenge in his tone. It was pure fact. He knew exactly who she was. For a moment, the lobby felt like it tilted, the invisible hierarchy trembling. The CEO, used to compliance, now stood in front of a man who refused to play by her unspoken rules. She crossed her arms, lips tightening. "I don't have time for this. My ID works just fine." "Step aside." Marcus held his ground. "It would only take a moment, ma'am. The new scanners require facial sync. I'll handle the rest." Her eyes flared, that quick flash of disbelief turning into annoyance. "Handle? You'll handle the CEO's access?" The words came out in a hiss, meant to humiliate, to remind him where he stood. But Marcus didn't budge. Didn't shrink. Didn't rise to it either. He simply said, "Yes, ma'am. That's my job." For the first time, there was a break in her rhythm, a small pause, a flicker of uncertainty. Something about his tone didn't match the uniform. There was control in it. Precision. Authority. But arrogance has a way of drowning curiosity. And Victoria Steele was a woman who built her success on believing she was the smartest person in every room. So she did what powerful people often do when they feel their power questioned, she raised her voice. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "I'm late for a board call. Let me through." Her words echoed through the lobby, sharp and brittle. Heads turned. Eyes flicked from screens and phones toward the scene. And though Marcus remained perfectly still, he could feel the moment shifting, that invisible current that runs through every public confrontation. He knew this pattern well. It always started small, a misunderstanding, a tone, a look. Then came the escalation. The subtle exposure of bias hidden behind authority. What she didn't know was that every second of this, her tone, her words, her posture, was being logged, recorded, and analyzed. That somewhere far above them, a board of directors was watching the very diversity leader they just hired reveal what she truly believed about equality. Marcus didn't smirk. He didn't even breathe differently. He just said, gently, "Ma'am, if you'd allow me to do my job, you'll be on your call in less than 60 seconds. Her lips tightened. Her voice dropped to a whisper, a private kind of threat. "I'll be sure to remember this," she said. Marcus's reply was quiet. "So will I." And though no one in the lobby understood what he meant, upstairs, in the boardroom, several people leaned closer to the screen. Because they knew, the test had officially begun. The air inside the lobby felt different now, thicker somehow, charged. What began as a simple exchange had turned into something else, something electric. People felt it before they fully understood it. A barista at the corner coffee kiosk froze mid-pour, eyes darting between the two figures at the checkpoint. A young intern, pretending to read her phone, tilted it just enough to start recording. The faint hum of conversation that usually filled the space had vanished, replaced by that quiet, nervous kind of silence that comes right before something big. The elevator chimed in the background, metallic, rhythmic, indifferent, as if the building itself refused to take sides. And standing in the center of it all was Victoria Steele, realizing, for the first time, that people were watching her not with admiration, but curiosity. Her eyes flicked left, then right, quick, controlled movements, the kind that say I need to get out of this without losing face. She lowered her voice, but her tone sharpened to ice. "Listen," she said, each word precise. "I don't take orders from security. If there's a problem, you can call my assistant." The line hung in the air like smoke. It was the kind of sentence that sounds polite until you hear what it really means. And everyone around them heard it. Marcus didn't blink. He didn't glance around, didn't let the weight of the watching eyes change his tone. His calm was almost unnerving, too steady for someone beneath her. "I don't need your assistant," he said evenly. "Just your badge." There was no bite in his voice. No hint of defiance. Just professionalism, the kind that quietly disarms arrogance. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was alive. It stretched between them like a wire pulled too tight. Victoria's jaw flexed. She exhaled through her nose, short and sharp, the way people do when they're restraining themselves from saying something that could be replayed later, which, unbeknownst to her, it already would be. Her lips pressed together in a smile that wasn't a smile. "You must be new here," she said finally, tone dripping with controlled condescension. Marcus's reply came like a calm tide washing over her words. "Not exactly." 2 words, simple, soft, but they carried weight. Something about the way he said them unsettled her. And for a heartbeat, the room seemed to tilt again. The hierarchy flickered. The CEO stood tall, but somehow smaller, the guard still, but somehow larger. The intern near the elevator shifted, whispering to a colleague, "Isn't that the new CEO?" Someone else murmured, "Why's she arguing with security?" Phones angled discreetly, thumbs hovered above record buttons. Victoria noticed. She straightened her posture, the instinct of someone who's spent years controlling narratives. Her smile returned, colder now, but polished. She leaned in just slightly, lowering her voice to a whisper meant only for him. "This is not how you talk to executives," she said. Marcus met her gaze, unshaken. "I talk to everyone the same way, ma'am. With respect." And that was the moment when everyone watching realized this wasn't about a badge anymore. It was about something deeper. About status. Respect. The unspoken rules that decide who gets questioned and who doesn't. But Victoria couldn't see it yet. She still thought this was a minor irritation, a small obstacle she could smooth over with authority. She had no idea that each passing second, each dismissive phrase, each tightened smile, was being time-stamped, logged, and watched by the very people who decided her fate. And as she stood there, clutching her coffee cup like a weapon, she told herself this would blow over in minutes. She couldn't have been more wrong. Because what was brewing behind her wasn't just a crowd, it was accountability. And in the silence that followed, even the elevators seemed to stop chiming. As if the building itself was waiting to see what she'd do next. The lobby seemed to hold its breath. Morning light spilled across the marble floors, glinting off the glass like shards of ice. The hum of conversation dimmed as her voice cut through the air, sharp, polished, and dripping with authority. "What's your name?" she demanded, tilting her chin down just enough to make it sting. "Marcus Johnson," he replied evenly. His tone was calm, too calm, the kind that comes from years of learning restraint in the face of disrespect. "Well, Marcus," she said, dragging his name as though it were an inconvenience, "I don't appreciate being stopped on my way to work. Especially not when I own the building." The statement hung there, heavy and arrogant. A few people nearby exchanged awkward glances, unsure whether to pretend they hadn't heard or to stand in quiet solidarity. Marcus didn't flinch. He simply lifted the scanner in his hand. "Badge, please," he said. That simple request, polite, procedural, landed like a challenge. She let out a soft, incredulous laugh, the kind meant to humiliate. "You people get a little power," she sneered, "and suddenly think you run the place." The words sliced deeper than she knew. A sharp inhale rippled through the crowd, that collective, uncomfortable gasp of witnesses who realize they've just seen a line crossed. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it pulsed with tension. Marcus stood tall, his expression unreadable. But behind his composed exterior was a familiar ache, the quiet exhaustion of someone who's had to prove their worth too many times in the same uniform. He didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice. He simply looked at her, really looked at her, with that calm authority that didn't need to shout to be powerful. The hum of the scanner filled the silence, a faint beep echoing like a heartbeat between them. And in that stillness, the imbalance of power began to shift, not with noise, but with dignity. The onlookers could feel it, the moment where arrogance met composure, and for the first time, it was arrogance that blinked first. The tension in the air hadn't fully settled when Marcus's wrist tablet gave a quiet buzz, a vibration so subtle, yet it seemed to echo louder than her voice ever had. "System alert, Phase 2, Executive Entry Validation." Marcus glanced down, the glow from his screen casting a soft blue light over his dark uniform. When he looked up again, his face was unreadable, professional, composed, the embodiment of calm authority. "Ma'am," he said evenly, "until I scan your ID, your floor access is restricted. That includes elevators and private offices." She blinked, taken aback, as though the word restricted had never been spoken to her before. "Are you serious?" she snapped. "Do you have any idea how much this company depends on me?" Marcus didn't answer. He didn't have to. He'd heard that tone before, entitlement disguised as urgency, arrogance wrapped in importance. Instead, he simply stood there, scanner in hand, waiting. Her irritation flared. She huffed, rolled her eyes, and snatched the badge clipped to her designer purse. The motion was quick, dismissive, the kind of gesture meant to reassert control. "Fine," she said sharply. "Let's get this over with." Marcus lifted the scanner with quiet precision. A small beep broke the silence. Then, a red flash. "Access pending, verification required." The sound of that mechanical voice cut through the lobby like a crack of thunder. And just like that, silence. The morning chatter froze. Even the elevator chime seemed to pause mid-ring. A few employees turned their heads, eyes darting between the glowing red light and Victoria's face. Her smirk faltered. "Just for a moment." What does that mean?" she asked, forcing a laugh that didn't quite reach her eyes. Marcus checked his wrist tablet again, scrolling through the system logs. His voice remained calm, almost gentle. "It means your profile requires manual confirmation before access is granted." She stared at him, disbelief melting into something else, confusion, maybe even unease. "That's impossible," she muttered. "My access is never restricted." Marcus looked up, meeting her gaze. "It is today." And in that quiet, sterile lobby, surrounded by marble floors and mirrored walls, it was suddenly hard to tell who held the real power. Because the woman who once claimed to own the building was now locked out of it. And the man she mocked for a little power was the only one who could let her back in. The red light from the scanner still glowed faintly against the polished marble floor, painting a small circle of defiance between them. For a moment, nobody moved. The world seemed to hold its breath. Then, Victoria exhaled sharply, an exasperated laugh slipping through her clenched teeth. "Oh, for God's sake. This is ridiculous." Marcus didn't flinch. He'd seen this before, the unraveling of authority, slow and incredulous, when someone accustomed to being obeyed suddenly found themselves challenged by procedure. "Systems new," he said evenly, voice calm as a metronome. "Sometimes board credentials take a moment to sink." She turned to him then, that CEO smile, the one made of charm, pride, and a hint of condescension. "You think the board needs to approve my access?" she said, laughing again, this time louder, incredulous. "They already have. I'm the CEO." Marcus tilted his head slightly, his tone polite but immovable. "Technically, ma'am, your clearance is still under review until final authorization from corporate security." The words corporate security landed heavy. For the first time, her confidence wavered. Her laugh returned, but it was sharper now, edged with disbelief. "So what now?" she asked. "You're going to deny me entry to my own company?" Marcus didn't answer. He didn't need to. The quiet hum of the scanner, the steady glow of red light, and his unwavering posture said enough. Around them, the lobby's energy shifted. The crowd that had pretended not to notice now couldn't look away. A receptionist froze mid-typing. A barista behind the coffee counter stopped steaming milk. Someone's phone hovered halfway out of their pocket, recording, maybe, but no one could be sure. Victoria's jaw tightened. She wasn't used to silence that didn't bend to her. So she filled it, the way people often do when they're losing control. "You know, this is exactly why people hate these new systems," she said, her voice dripping with mock patience. "Everything's automated. No human judgment. No common sense. Just machines and rules." Marcus finally spoke, quietly. "Machines don't judge, ma'am. They just verify." That landed like a subtle rebuke, clean, quiet, cutting. Her mouth opened as if to respond, but nothing came out. For a fleeting second, something like discomfort flickered in her expression. But it was gone as quickly as it came. Instead, she straightened her shoulders, projecting the same confidence she wore in every boardroom, every press conference. "I've built this company from the ground up," she said, the words trembling with restrained pride. "And I will not be stopped by a security guard with a barcode scanner." Marcus looked at her then, not with defiance, not even anger, but with a calm that almost bordered on pity. Because he knew something she didn't. And as the scanner's red light continued to pulse in silence, it was clear. The power dynamic in that lobby was beginning to shift. And the person standing on the marble floor in heels worth more than his month's salary was suddenly the one waiting for permission. The tension in the lobby had grown thick enough to taste. You could feel it in the air, that static, invisible charge that comes right before a storm. Victoria took a step closer, her heels striking the marble with the precision of a gavel. Each click echoed through the stillness like a countdown. Marcus didn't move. His calmness wasn't arrogance, it was conviction, the quiet kind that unsettles people who are used to control. Her perfume hit first, sharp, cold, expensive. Then her voice followed, just as sharp. "You don't get to decide who belongs here," she said, her words slicing through the air like glass. He didn't blink. Didn't flinch. His tone stayed level, steady, unbothered. "That's true," he said. "The system does." The red light from the scanner still glowed between them, steady and merciless, a mechanical heartbeat that refused to side with privilege. Around them, the crowd grew. Employees huddled near the coffee bar, pretending to check emails but watching every second. Whispers traveled like wildfire, low, urgent murmurs that carried more judgment than words ever could. Someone, trying to look casual, tilted their phone ever so slightly. The lens caught the reflection of Victoria's face, her jaw tight, her eyes narrowed, her image already slipping into rumor. The scanner's light flashed again, still red. Still waiting. "This is absurd," she muttered under her breath, though her voice carried just enough for the nearby staff to hear. "You'll be out of a job by noon." Marcus met her gaze, eyes steady, not angry, not defensive. Just firm. "Maybe," he said. "But for now, I'm just doing it." For the first time, her words didn't land. They hit something solid and slid off, powerless. She drew herself taller, taking another step forward until the space between them disappeared. "Next time you speak to someone like me," she said, her voice low and poisonous, "learn your place." The sentence hung in the air, heavy, ugly, unmistakable. And in that instant, everything stopped. The hum of the elevators. The chatter from the reception desk. Even the rotating doors seemed to pause mid-spin, as if the entire building held its breath. Every person in that lobby knew they had just witnessed something that couldn't be taken back. Not because it was loud, but because it revealed something quiet, something raw and irreversible. Victoria Steele, the CEO, had spoken not like a leader, but like someone who believed her power was inherited, not earned. And Marcus, the man she thought was beneath her, stood silent, letting the moment expose her better than any argument ever could. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't defend himself. He simply let the truth hang there. The truth that sometimes, the loudest statement, is the refusal to react. And somewhere above them, in a silent boardroom filled with blinking monitors and streaming feeds, someone was watching, recording, noting, remembering. Victoria thought she'd just put a man in his place. But what she didn't realize was that her words had just placed her exactly where the world would soon see her. On the wrong side of her own company's values. For a long, loaded moment, neither of them moved. Only the soft hum of the scanner filled the air, pulsing red against the polished marble like a warning no one wanted to acknowledge. Then Marcus finally exhaled, slow and deliberate, the way a man does when he's been patient long enough. He tapped his wrist tablet, a quiet click-click that broke the tension like a crack of distant thunder. "Copy that," he said under his breath, voice calm, almost too calm. "Initiating override verification." Upstairs, in a sleek glass boardroom bathed in morning light, a wall of screens flickered to life. The directors, the very people Victoria thought she ruled over, were watching every second. They leaned forward, eyes narrowing, realizing something was about to happen. Down below, Victoria folded her arms, smirking, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Finally," she said, rolling her shoulders with relief. "About time someone fixes this nonsense." Marcus lifted the scanner again, steady hands betraying none of what he knew. He ran her badge once more. A loading icon spun lazily across the screen. A single blink. Then another. And then, a new line appeared. Cold. Technical. Final. Authorization override requested, input board-level credentials. Her smirk faltered. "What does that mean?" she asked, irritation creeping into her voice. Marcus didn't answer. He simply placed his thumb against the scanner. Beep. The system chimed, then displayed the words that changed everything. System override, accepted. Access granted by Marcus Johnson, Chief of Corporate Security, board-level clearance. The sound that followed wasn't silence, it was something deeper. The quiet that comes when truth detonates in slow motion. Victoria's smile dissolved, her confidence draining faster than she could mask it. Every whisper in the lobby stopped mid-breath. And in that breathless stillness, one reality became clear. The man she had just humiliated was the one person in this building she could never afford to disrespect. It happened so fast, and yet, in that instant, time seemed to slow. Victoria's voice caught in her throat. Her lips parted, but the words stumbled, clumsy and unsure for the first time all morning. "Wait," she stammered, her confidence cracking. "What did that say?" Marcus didn't reply. He didn't need to. He simply turned the scanner screen toward her, his expression calm, unreadable. The words glowed in clean, bold text, the kind you couldn't argue with. Access granted by Marcus Johnson, Chief of Corporate Security, board-level clearance. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. A murmur rippled through the lobby, soft at first, then growing like a wave of disbelief. One of the junior guards, the same one who'd been watching from behind the metal detector, whispered under his breath, almost reverently, "Chief?" The receptionist froze mid-typing, eyes wide, fingers hovering uselessly over her keyboard. Across the room, someone's coffee cup slipped from their hand and hit the floor, a sharp crack that echoed through the stunned silence. Victoria stood rigid, her perfectly tailored coat suddenly feeling too heavy, her authority slipping through her fingers like sand. Her gaze darted between Marcus, the screen, and the small circle of employees now witnessing every fragment of her undoing. Upstairs, in the boardroom, the live feed zoomed in. Every director leaned closer, their faces half-lit by the monitor's glow. One of them, an older man with silver hair and tired eyes, spoke first, his voice low. He didn't tell her, he murmured. He wanted to see how she'd act. Another director, a woman with a calm, deliberate tone, nodded slowly. "And now," she said, "we've seen everything we needed to." Back in the lobby, Marcus said nothing. He just met her eyes, steady, respectful, but utterly unshaken. And in that silence, the power she thought she owned, shifted. Not through shouting. Not through punishment. But through revelation. The truth stood in front of her, quiet and immovable. And for the first time, Victoria Steele, the CEO who answered to no one, realized she was the one under review. Far above the marble and chatter of the lobby, the 70th floor basked in a pale wash of morning light. The boardroom, a long crescent of glass overlooking the city, was silent, save for the faint hum of the monitors displaying the live feed below. 7 directors sat in solemn focus, their reflections caught in the polished surface of the table. On screen, they watched Victoria Steele, their newly crowned CEO, standing rigid before Marcus Johnson, the man she'd mocked only minutes earlier. Her power posture was gone. Her voice, once sharp and commanding, now trembled beneath the weight of her own arrogance. The camera feed flickered for a second, zooming in on Marcus's calm expression. His hands moved with quiet precision, initiating the override, restoring order, but never anger. Every gesture, every word, carried a dignity that didn't need defending. Eleanor Shaw, the board chair, leaned forward. Her silver hair glinted beneath the skylight as she spoke, not loudly, but with authority that filled the room. "Timestamp that clip," she said. "Forward it to legal and HR. I want it in the compliance archive before the hour ends." The compliance officer, a man with wire-rimmed glasses and a voice like rustling paper, nodded. "Already done, ma'am. The footage includes both audio and screen logs. Her remarks are crystal clear." A hush followed. On the screen, Victoria was frozen mid-expression, eyes wide, lips parted, disbelief carved across her face. "She's supposed to represent this company's values," muttered Director Patel, shaking his head. "The board voted her in because she promised to modernize culture, not embarrass it." Another voice, quiet but edged with disappointment, added, "Publicly, she preaches inclusion. Privately, she still sees hierarchy." Eleanor's gaze remained fixed on Marcus. She studied his composure, the way he never once retaliated, never let emotion cloud duty. "He never raised his voice," she said softly. Director Chen, a man known for his brevity, nodded. "He didn't have to." Eleanor turned slightly toward the head of HR, who was already scrolling through a report on her tablet. What's the internal policy say about executive misconduct under bias audits? Automatic review, the HR director replied. Especially when captured during an official ethics inspection. This incident qualifies, full investigation required. Good, Eleanor said. Her tone carried the gravity of leadership seasoned by years of watching power corrupt quietly. Make sure the footage remains internal until we convene the full board. We'll address it formally. The compliance officer hesitated. And Mr. Johnson? Eleanor allowed a faint, knowing smile. Invite him to the debrief, she said. He's earned more than a commendation. He's just given this board the proof we've needed for months. As the morning light strengthened, the screen froze on one final image. Marcus, standing tall, the word authorized glowing behind him. And for the first time in a long time, the boardroom of Steel Dynamics felt something rare. Not just control, not just strategy, but conscience. The lobby, once alive with motion, now felt like a sealed chamber, air thick, sound muted. Every click of a shoe, every hum of machinery seemed louder, sharper. Victoria's attempt at laughter rang through the stillness, high-pitched, brittle, desperate. "Oh. So you're, with corporate security," she said, her voice wobbling on the edges of forced casualness. "My mistake." Marcus didn't smile. Didn't flinch. "Chief of Corporate Security," he corrected, tone even, a correction made not to humiliate, but to remind her of truth. Her eyes flicked away for a fraction of a second, long enough for the reality to sink in. The title chief echoed somewhere in her mind like a bell she couldn't unhear. "Right," she said quickly, adjusting the strap of her designer purse. "Well, this is awkward." She smoothed her coat, desperate for control, then cast a glance toward the elevator, that polished silver escape door gleaming like salvation. "I'll just head upstairs now." But Marcus's voice stopped her, calm, grounded, unshakable. "Before you proceed, ma'am, I'll need to finalize your verification log. For transparency." She blinked. "Is that really necessary?" He turned his wrist tablet toward her, fingers tapping with quiet precision. "It's protocol. Everything that happens at this checkpoint becomes part of the security record." Her confidence faltered, just for a breath. "Everything?" Marcus's gaze held hers. "Audio and video," he said. It landed like a verdict. For the first time that morning, the confident CEO, the woman who'd strutted into the lobby certain of her superiority, went silent. You could see it in her face, realization spreading slowly, painfully. Every condescending word. Every dismissive laugh. Every phrase, "You people, learn your place," captured, catalogued, stored. Behind her, two junior employees exchanged glances, their expressions tight with a mix of discomfort and disbelief. One looked down, pretending to read an email. The other just stared at the floor, as if that could make them invisible. The elevator chimed, ding, a sound that had always signaled command for her. But now, it only underscored how trapped she was. Her reflection in the elevator's mirrored door looked back at her, immaculate, composed, but trembling slightly around the edges. She tried to summon her usual tone, that executive poise that had carried her through boardrooms and press interviews. But her throat tightened before the words could form. Marcus broke the silence first, his tone professional, almost gentle. "This verification process exists for everyone, Ms. Steele. No exceptions. Not even for CEOs." Her eyes flickered with something between anger and shame. "I suppose. I understand." Marcus tapped once more, sealing the entry log. "Thank you, ma'am. You're clear to proceed." She nodded stiffly and stepped toward the elevator. But the moment the doors slid open, she hesitated, aware that every step, every breath, was still being watched, still being recorded. And as the doors closed around her, that same voice from the boardroom feed, Marcus's calm baritone, echoed in her mind. No exceptions. For the first time in her career, those words didn't sound like rules. They sounded like truth. The air between them thickens, heavy, charged, almost humming with something unspeakable. Victoria's laugh fades into the marble floor, the echo of her own arrogance chasing her like a ghost. Marcus doesn't gloat. He doesn't smirk. He simply stands there, posture steady, voice even, the calm in a storm she didn't know she'd started. "You were recording this?" she asks again, but this time, her voice is thinner. Less command, more disbelief. "The system records everyone," Marcus says. His words are measured, precise. Not cruel, just true. He nods toward the ID scanner, that small, unassuming black device still glowing red. "Not me. The protocol. Every badge scan, every interaction, every audio cue. It's standard procedure for executive entries." Victoria follows his gaze, her eyes locking on the tiny lens embedded just above the glowing light. It blinks once, a quiet, mechanical heartbeat, as if confirming his words. Her throat tightens. Her hand twitches. The cup she's holding tilts slightly, and a dark drop of coffee slides down her wrist like spilled ink. "And the board," she whispers, her voice breaking before she can finish. "Watched this?" Marcus meets her eyes. He doesn't blink. Doesn't soften it. "In real time," he says simply. There's no music, no sound, just the faint hum of the lobby lights and the distant echo of the elevator descending. Victoria's breathing becomes audible, short, shallow, uneven. The confident rhythm of a CEO replaced by the trembling inhale of someone watching the walls close in. Her mind races, replaying every word she said, every smirk, every cruel remark dressed as superiority. She remembers the looks from the employees, the silence when she entered the building, the half-smiles that weren't smiles at all. They all knew who Marcus was. Everyone but her. Her hand goes to her hair, smoothing it back as if poise could fix perception. "Marcus," she starts, her tone shifting, now softer, desperate, seeking control in kindness. "Surely there's a misunderstanding. I was just—" But Marcus interrupts gently. Not with hostility, with the weight of truth. "Ma'am," he says, "the system doesn't misunderstand. It records." She swallows hard. Above them, somewhere beyond the ceiling tiles and marble beams, she knows the board is still watching, silent, calculating, judging the woman who mocked the man she should have respected. The cup in her hand finally slips. It doesn't shatter, it just lands softly on the carpet, coffee bleeding out in a quiet, spreading circle. For the first time in years, Victoria Steele has nothing left to say. And for the first time, silence feels louder than her power ever did. Marcus turns slightly, checking the scanner's screen one last time, routine, professional, detached. "Verification complete," he says quietly. Then, after a pause that feels like judgment itself, "You're cleared for access, ma'am." But as the elevator doors open, the sound isn't permission. It's a verdict. Victoria takes a slow breath, shallow, unsteady, then straightens her blazer as if posture could rewrite what just happened. Her chin lifts. Her smile forms. Polished. Practiced. The corporate mask slides back into place. "Well," she says lightly, voice trembling beneath the gloss of control, "this has been enlightening." A small laugh escapes her lips, brittle as glass. "I suppose this was part of some kind of test, yes?" Marcus regards her quietly. He doesn't move, doesn't even blink. When he finally speaks, his tone is steady, the kind of calm that doesn't need volume to be powerful. "An integrity audit," he replies. "Conducted quarterly. You weren't notified because unannounced assessments produce genuine reactions." The words land like weights, soft, but immovable. Victoria's eyes flicker. "Of course, she blurts. I understand completely. I mean, it's good to see the system working. Accountability is essential. Her voice rises slightly, trying to sound composed, but the edges fray with every syllable. The smile stays frozen, but her eyes, they betray her. In the corner of the lobby, two junior analysts exchange a glance, pretending to look away. The receptionist suddenly finds something fascinating on her monitor. Even the guards near the turnstile stand a little straighter, sensing the shift in power, the invisible crown slipping from the CEO's head. Victoria keeps talking, filling the silence that Marcus never tries to fill. It's impressive, really, she continues, her words tumbling faster now. I've always said transparency builds trust. I'll be sure to commend your team for their vigilance. But Marcus doesn't respond. He simply scans the final line of the verification log, clicks a button, and looks up. His silence is a mirror, and in it, she sees the reflection she's been running from, a leader caught not in failure, but in exposure. The elevator dings softly behind her. She glances at it, a metallic escape route, then back at Marcus. I suppose, she says with forced cheer, this little misunderstanding won't affect my onboarding. Her laugh is too quick, too rehearsed. After all, I passed, right? Marcus studies her for a moment longer, not with malice, but with a quiet kind of pity. The system determines that, he says. Not me. A pause. Then, gently, the footage was transmitted to the board in real time. They'll review and decide the next steps. Her breath catches. The mask cracks, just slightly, and behind it, the fear begins to show. Oh, she whispers. I see. The elevator doors slide open again, patient and waiting. The metallic light spills across the floor, stretching toward her shoes like a spotlight she didn't ask for. She steps forward, smoothing her hair once more, a gesture of control she no longer possesses. As she passes Marcus, she forces a polite nod. Thank you. Chief, she says softly, the title awkward, reluctant. Marcus inclines his head respectfully. Ma'am. And then she steps into the elevator. The doors close. Inside the sealed silence, the reflection in the mirrored walls stares back at her, not Victoria Steele, the unstoppable CEO, but a woman replaying every word that just destroyed her credibility. Her smile fades. Her posture sags. For the first time, she realizes, the real test wasn't the audit. It was character. And she failed it, live. The sound that fills the lobby now isn't speech. It's silence, a deep, heavy kind of silence that hums louder than any voice. The hum of the elevator, the faint click of computer keys, even the air conditioning, all of it seems to fade beneath the weight of what Marcus has just said. He doesn't raise his tone. He doesn't need to. Marcus glances down at his tablet, scrolling with deliberate patience, his posture calm, almost too calm. The kind of calm that doesn't come from submission, but from certainty. Ma'am, he begins softly, his voice even, polite, almost gentle, may I ask something? Victoria, already on edge, forces a smile. It's thin, fragile. Of course. Marcus looks up. His gaze is steady, not cold, just unflinching. When you said, you people get a little power and think you run the place, he pauses, letting each word hang in the air. Who did you mean by, you people? The words hit harder than a shout ever could. The lobby freezes. A courier near the door stops mid-step. The receptionist's fingers hover over the keyboard but never type. Even the security guards, the ones who've worked under Marcus for years, lower their eyes, because they know this moment isn't theirs to fix. Victoria's jaw tightens. Her eyes dart around, searching for somewhere, anywhere, to land. I didn't mean, that was out of context. Marcus interrupts her, but not cruelly. His voice stays calm. Controlled. The kind of control that comes from discipline, not emotion. It was on record, he says gently. So context will be provided by the recording. The sentence lands like a quiet verdict. No accusation. No anger. Just fact. She blinks rapidly, her throat bobbing as she tries to swallow her own panic. Marcus, listen, she starts, voice trembling. I think we both know how these things can sound when emotions are high. It was a misunderstanding. Marcus doesn't respond immediately. He simply looks at her, not as a subordinate or superior, but as a witness. And in that gaze, there's no hostility. There's just truth. She shifts her stance, forcing a chuckle that doesn't quite reach her eyes. I mean, come on, you know how people talk. It's just a phrase. A phrase, Marcus echoes quietly. A phrase you said to someone you assumed had no authority. That's when it happens, the smallest sound, but the loudest shift. A faint whisper ripples through the lobby. It's the sound of realization, that this moment isn't about policy or access or protocol. It's about something far older, far deeper. It's about respect. Or the lack of it. Victoria's hand trembles as she tucks a strand of hair behind her ear. She tries again, voice cracking at the edges. I didn't mean it like that, okay? I was frustrated. The system wasn't working, and I overreacted. That's all. Marcus nods once. Slowly. I understand frustration, ma'am. But the system was working. It was just working on you. That line stops her cold. No one breathes. The sentence seems to stretch across the marble floors, bouncing off the glass walls, echoing faintly back into the room like a truth she can't escape. For a moment, she looks like she might argue, but the words don't come. Because deep down, she knows he's right. The scanner wasn't malfunctioning. Her clearance wasn't delayed. Her composure was. Marcus finally closes his tablet. His voice softens again, not as a warning, but as a grace note. I don't hold grudges, Ms. Steele. My job is to keep this building, and everyone in it, safe. That includes you. The way he says it, steady, respectful, is the final reversal. Because now it's clear who truly holds the power here. Not in title, but in principle. Victoria's voice is barely above a whisper. I understand. Marcus nods, just once. I'm sure you do. Then he steps aside, gesturing toward the elevator. You're free to go up now. The board will debrief you shortly. She hesitates, just long enough for everyone to see it, then walks toward the elevator, her heels clicking against the marble like the slow countdown of her authority unraveling. As the doors begin to close, she glances back over her shoulder. Marcus is still standing there, calm, composed, unmoved. And for the first time since she entered the building that morning, she realizes something that shakes her more than the recording ever could. She mocked the one man in the room who never needed to raise his voice to be heard. The one who led not through fear, but through quiet authority. The elevator doors seal shut with a soft chime. And in the reflection of the polished chrome, Victoria sees herself, small, pale, and wordless, swallowed by the silence she created. The sound comes first, a soft, sterile chime, like a digital heartbeat pulsing through the tension. Marcus turns the scanner toward his wrist tablet, the glass screen coming alive with layers of cascading data. Blue light flickers across his calm face, biometric graphs, access trails, encrypted authorization logs, all aligning like gears in a machine built to remember everything. The lobby feels smaller now. Quieter. Even the hum of the ventilation seems to pause as the tablet speaks in a neutral, synthetic voice. System update complete. Ethics flag recorded, executive misconduct, Class B. The words hang in the air, clinical, detached, final. Victoria blinks. For a moment, she doesn't even breathe. Misconduct, she repeats, half laughing, half choking. For what? Marcus doesn't meet her eyes right away. He scrolls through the data, his tone measured, not defensive, not accusatory, just steady. For hostile language, he says, tapping once on the log, and obstruction of security protocol. It's the way he says it, simple, factual, that cuts the deepest. He's not angry. He's not trying to humiliate her. He's just documenting truth. And somehow, that professionalism stings more than outrage ever could. Victoria's face flushes with disbelief. "You can't be serious," she mutters, her voice trembling under the weight of the calm. But Marcus doesn't reply. The scanner hums again, sealing the report with a quiet beep. Every sound, the chime, the digital confirmation, the automated voice, feels like the building itself is speaking. Like the system isn't just tracking her mistake, it's witnessing it. And for the first time that morning, Victoria Steele, the CEO, realizes that power, no matter how high it climbs, still answers to something higher: accountability. If you've ever seen power flip in a single moment, hit subscribe and stay with me. Because what happens next changes everything. In the boardroom high above the lobby, the morning light spills through floor-to-ceiling windows, tinting the glass table in gold. The atmosphere feels heavy, too still, too careful. No one dares to sip their coffee. The only sound is the faint hum of the playback screen. On it, Victoria's voice repeats in crystalline clarity. "You people get a little power and think you run the place." It echoes through the room like a confession that can't be taken back. Eleanor Shaw, the board chair, leans back slowly, folding her arms. Her expression doesn't change, but her silence says more than any reprimand could. Finally, she speaks, voice quiet, controlled, cutting through the murmurs like a scalpel. "Do we have the clip?" "Yes," says the compliance officer. "Full visual and audio, multiple angles. Time-stamped, cross-verified with access logs." Another voice, hesitant, "Does HR know?" "They're in the loop. They've already requested a transcript." A pause. Someone clears his throat. Eleanor exhales through her nose, a mix of fatigue and disappointment. She's been preaching inclusion, she says finally, since her first press conference. She made it her platform, her brand. She's new, another director offers. One incident doesn't define. Eleanor turns to him sharply. "It's one incident," she interrupts. "One too many." The words land hard. No one argues. The compliance officer hesitates, then taps the tablet again, letting the phrase replay a second time, softer now, but heavier, like a truth sinking into the walls themselves. "You people get a little power and think you run the place." For a long moment, no one speaks. The sound fades into silence, replaced only by the faint hum of the city below, a city that doesn't yet know a reckoning has just begun. Real power isn't in titles, it's in truth. If you believe that too, tap like right now. It helps this story reach more people who need to hear it. The tension that once filled the lobby begins to thin, not gone, but trembling in the air like smoke after a fire. Victoria's shoulders, once square and defiant, begin to drop. Her voice, usually firm and flawless, now falters between guilt and disbelief. "Marcus," she begins, almost a whisper. "I didn't mean to offend you. I was under stress. This morning's been chaotic." Marcus studies her quietly. The scanner light has faded now, leaving only the glow from the lobby's ceiling lamps painting both their faces in muted silver. His reply is gentle, but steady, the kind of calm that doesn't scold, only reveals. "I understand," he says. "Stress reveals truth." She blinks, caught between embarrassment and understanding. For the first time, her gaze doesn't pass through him. It rests on him. For the first time, she sees what everyone else already does, that this man standing in front of her isn't just a security guard scanning IDs. His movements are deliberate, his tone balanced, his authority quiet but undeniable. Her voice softens further. "How long have you been with the company?" 8 years, Marcus replies evenly. 3 in operations. 5 as head of global security. The answer lands like a quiet thunderclap. She takes a small step back, as if the air itself has shifted. Her lips part slightly, and her next words come out slower, almost reverent. "I see." For a fleeting second, the mask of command she wears, the sharp CEO confidence, slips. What's left isn't arrogance or control. It's the face of someone realizing how deeply they've misjudged another human being. And in that silence, Marcus doesn't gloat. He doesn't smirk or speak. He simply stands, composed, professional, unshaken, letting the truth between them speak for itself. The power dynamic has flipped completely, but he wears it with grace. Because real authority doesn't raise its voice. It never has to. For a moment, all Victoria can hear is the faint hum of the lobby's ventilation, the sterile rhythm of a world suddenly too quiet. Marcus's fingers glide across his wrist tablet, smooth, precise, unhurried. The screen comes alive with cascading data logs, timestamps, ID scans, internal metrics labeled behavioral audit, executive interactions. The words feel clinical, technical, until he speaks. "This was never about entry access," Marcus says, his tone even, but edged with quiet conviction. "It's about respect, how leadership treats the unseen." His voice doesn't rise. It doesn't need to. The weight of what he's saying pulls the air taut between them. Victoria's brow furrows as the reality sinks in. "You set this up?" He looks at her, not smug, not vengeful, just factual. "No. The board did." He pauses, then adds, "I designed the system." The words hit her harder than any reprimand could. Her breath catches, eyes darting to the tablet again, seeing line after line of data she doesn't fully understand but instantly recognizes as evidence. "You built the audit?" she asks, almost disbelieving. He nods once. The glow of the screen flickers across his face, calm, resolute. "And today," Marcus says, eyes never leaving hers, "it worked." The silence that follows isn't empty. It's full, with realization, consequence, and the sudden collapse of every assumption she's ever made about who holds power in this building. Because in this moment, it's not the CEO who defines the standard. It's the man she almost dismissed. And now, she finally understands, this wasn't a confrontation. It was a mirror. You've seen the surface. Now watch what happens when the truth reaches the top floor. Stay till the end, this part will change how you see power forever. Upstairs, Eleanor's words hang in the air, heavy, deliberate, like the silence that follows an explosion. Around the table, the directors exchange uneasy glances. Every one of them knows what this means, the hierarchy just trembled. The untouchable just got touched. Someone clears his throat. "We've spent millions on rebranding, diversity campaigns, inclusion talks, and now this." Eleanor cuts him off. "That's exactly why we don't hide. If we sweep it under the rug, we become the hypocrisy she's been preaching against." A younger executive, voice trembling, adds, "The markets will react." Eleanor's gaze sharpens. "Let them. A company's value isn't just its stock price, it's its soul." The room falls quiet again. The monitors flicker with Marcus's face from the lobby feed, composed, measured, unbothered. Not the image of a man seeking revenge, but one quietly fulfilling a mission. He knew, someone whispers. He knew this would happen. Eleanor nods. He understood the culture better than any of us sitting here. We talk about accountability, he built it. Then comes the knock on the door. An assistant steps in, pale-faced, holding a phone. Ma'am, it's trending. The clip. It's everywhere. The air shifts. The weight of the corporate machine, its PR walls, its lawyers, its careful image, suddenly feels fragile. Eleanor exhales slowly. Then we do what we promised, she says. We stand by the truth. And with that, she picks up the phone and dials. Get Marcus on a secure line, she orders. If he's ready. I want him leading the internal ethics initiative. As the board murmurs in disbelief, she adds quietly, almost to herself. In every empire, there comes a day when the guards stop protecting the gate, and start guarding the truth. The camera, or in this case, the listener's imagination, lingers on the boardroom lights flickering against the night skyline. A billion-dollar company shakes from the inside out, not from scandal, but from awakening. The silence in the lobby feels almost sacred now, that strange kind of quiet that comes right after a storm. The hum of the lights, the faint echo of footsteps, the soft click of the elevator buttons, all of it feels amplified, stretched thin by tension. Victoria stands there, still clutching her designer tote, her fingers trembling slightly though she hides it well. For the first time all morning, she isn't the one in control of the room. The power dynamic, once invisible, unchallenged, has shifted so smoothly it almost feels divine. Marcus doesn't gloat. He doesn't even smirk. He simply straightens his posture, hands clasped neatly behind him, as if nothing extraordinary just happened. That composure unnerves her more than any confrontation ever could. You're free to proceed, ma'am, he says, his voice even, professional, unshaken. Access reauthorized. The words hit her differently this time, not as permission, but as a verdict. She hesitates, her eyes flicking toward the security cameras, those silent witnesses now carrying her humiliation to the very top floors of the building she once ruled. Will this go to the board? She asks quietly, almost hoping the answer might offer mercy. Marcus looks at her, his expression kind but firm. It already has. Don't miss what happens when that door closes, because sometimes the end is where truth begins. Make sure you're subscribed. For a heartbeat, the world seems to stop moving. The elevator opens behind her with a soft chime, its interior glowing warm gold against the cold marble floor. She turns toward it, but her steps are slow, each one heavier than the last. As she steps inside, the mirrored walls of the elevator reflect her image from every side, not the confident CEO the world knows, but a woman suddenly made small by her own reflection. The doors begin to close, sealing her inside that box of silence. And then, just before they shut completely, the scanner light beside Marcus shifts from red to green. A quiet signal of clearance, or perhaps, of clarity. The soft green glow catches Marcus's face. He doesn't move, doesn't smile, doesn't sigh. He just watches, calm, still, centered, as if he's bearing witness to something far bigger than victory. A voice fades in, calm and resonant, like truth itself finally speaking. Sometimes power isn't taken. It's revealed, in the moments when the truth can no longer hide behind titles. The elevator doors meet in the middle with a soft metallic click. And for a long moment, the lobby stands frozen, half bathed in shadow, half in the glow of that quiet green light. 2 hours later. The city hums in daylight now. Up on the 70th floor, a quiet meeting turns into a media crisis. Board Chair Eleanor Shaw leans forward, fingers steepled. The clips circulating internally. Someone in the lobby posted a short snippet, the moment she said, "You people." PR Director Alan adjusts his glasses. It's already on LinkedIn. Then Reddit. We're at 200,000 views in under 20 minutes. Another screen lights up with a flood of hashtags. Hashtag scan your bias. Hashtag Steel Dynamics Incident. Hashtag Marcus Johnson. The footage, once meant for internal review, has escaped containment. In an age where every interaction can become evidence, the line between private arrogance and public accountability grows thin. Comments scroll across the feed. That man kept his calm like a soldier. She really said that on camera? As a CEO? Give that guard a promotion. Oh wait, he's already her boss. By noon, the clip has been viewed 3.8 million times. By 3 p.m., news outlets pick it up. A CNBC segment runs with the headline, CEO under fire after racially insensitive exchange with security director. Victoria's office feels colder than ever. Blinds drawn. Phone silenced. Her inbox flashes, 712 unread messages. A text from PR. Statement draft ready. Need your approval before press deadline. She scrolls through social media. Her name trends beside the word bias. She clicks a clip, her own voice echoing back. You people get a little power and think you run the place. Her face drains. Oh God. The same employees who once smiled politely now avoid her in hallways. The walls that once insulated her success are now mirrors reflecting everything she refused to see. Downstairs, Marcus receives a call. Board Security Channel. Priority Level 1. Mr. Johnson, the board would like you in the conference room at 11 o'clock sharp. Copy that. He arrives at the top floor, no longer in his uniform, but in a tailored navy suit. His demeanor unchanged, calm, precise, centered. The same receptionist who once looked past him now stands to greet him. Good morning, Chief Johnson. Morning. He steps into the boardroom. Eleanor gestures toward the seat at the head of the table. Marcus, thank you for joining us. You've handled this with extraordinary professionalism. Just doing my job, he replies. You've done more than that, she says. You demonstrated what integrity looks like under pressure. Alan, PR director, adds. We've reviewed all footage. The board supports full transparency. We'll issue a public statement acknowledging the incident, and your leadership. Marcus nods. If I may make a recommendation. The room quiets. Don't make it about me. Make it about what this revealed. By early afternoon, a press release hits every major outlet. Press statement, Steel Dynamics Board of Directors. We are aware of a recent incident involving CEO Victoria Steele and Chief of Corporate Security Marcus Johnson. The footage reveals conduct inconsistent with our company's values. We stand by Mr. Johnson's professionalism and reaffirm our commitment to equity and accountability at every level of leadership. Within hours, global news cycles pick it up. Stockholders issue questions. Diversity organizations respond. And across social media, a single image trends, Marcus's calm face beside the words. Dignity is not a title. It's a choice. Victoria stands in front of the board. Her voice is smaller now, stripped of its edge. I take full responsibility. My words were inappropriate. I was under pressure. Eleanor interrupts gently. We all face pressure, Victoria. Character is how we behave under it. Silence. We're placing you on administrative leave pending review. During that time, Marcus will assume oversight of security and ethics initiatives across the organization. Victoria swallows hard. You're replacing me? We're giving you time to reflect, Eleanor says. What you do with that time determines what happens next. Justice, in the digital age, doesn't come from punishment alone, but from exposure, reflection, and change. Clips roll of public commentary. Talk shows. Podcast hosts dissecting corporate hypocrisy. Employees sharing stories under the tag hashtag moments like Marcus, recounting times they'd been dismissed or profiled at work. The narrative shifts from outrage to awareness. Steel Dynamics announces a company-wide reform. Mandatory ethics certification for executives. Quarterly equity audits. Anonymous reporting channels. The system Marcus built becomes the global model for accountability. Late night. Victoria sits alone in her apartment, the city lights cold and distant beyond the glass. Laptop open to a paused video frame, her own face, mid-sneer. She exhales, then clicks play. She watches every second, her words, his calm. By the end, her hand covers her mouth. A notification pings, message from Marcus Johnson. Just one line. For growth to begin, the mirror has to stay up. She stares at it for a long time before replying. Thank you for not lowering it. Next morning. An auditorium packed with employees. Marcus stands at the podium, no notes in hand. I've been asked to speak today, not about what happened, but what it revealed. Bias doesn't always wear a hood or shout insults. Sometimes it wears a tailored suit and hides behind power. But power without empathy is just insecurity in disguise. The audience is silent. Moved. We can't fix what we won't face. And we can't change what we refuse to see. Applause builds, not polite, but grateful. Corporate newsletter headline. Marcus Johnson appointed Chief Ethics and Security Officer, Global Division. Social media. He didn't demand revenge. He built reform. Real power doesn't shout, it stands still. Justice isn't loud. It's the quiet recalibration of power, when truth becomes impossible to ignore. 3 months later. Morning light spills through the same skyscraper lobby. But it feels different. The marble floors still gleam. The chrome still shines. Yet something subtle has shifted, an undercurrent of awareness, respect, restraint. The front desk now bears a new plaque. Equity and Security Division, Marcus Johnson, Chief Officer. Employees pass Marcus with a nod that carries both recognition and gratitude. He nods back, not superior, just human. Time doesn't erase what happened, but it refines what we do with it. Cut to the 40th floor. Conference room walls filled with posters reading Leadership Through Empathy and Bias is the Enemy of Vision. Marcus addresses a room full of executives from multiple departments, many once skeptical, now attentive. These new modules aren't about punishment. They're about perspective. Understanding that authority doesn't excuse behavior, it amplifies responsibility. He gestures toward a presentation slide showing live data. Employee Trust Index, plus 37%. Reported incidents of discrimination, down 62%. A young manager raises her hand. So this isn't about quotas or politics? No, Marcus replies softly. It's about humanity. Applause. Small, but real. The elevator doors open. Victoria steps out. Gone are the designer heels and the sharp armor of pride. She wears simplicity now, neutral tones, no entourage. Employees glance, curious, cautious. She walks straight to Marcus's office. Knocks once. You have a minute? Marcus looks up from his desk. Of course. She steps inside, hands clasped. I've been doing the training. All of it. Every module. It's humbling. That's the point, he says gently. She pauses, then exhales. I wanted to apologize. Not because of PR. Not for the cameras. But because that morning showed me who I'd become, and it wasn't someone I respected. Marcus studies her, then nods. Apology accepted. She hesitates. You don't sound angry. Anger's heavy, he replies. I prefer progress. Silence. Then, quietly, she smiles, small, genuine. Redemption doesn't erase the past. It redefines its purpose. Now. Victoria is in a training session, listening instead of leading. Marcus reviewing new ethics reports with HR. Employees laughing at the cafe, no longer tense around uniforms. Posters across the building, power. Accountability. Empathy. The skyline outside gleams golden. What began as a confrontation became a correction, not of one person, but of a culture. The public recognition. A large conference, the National Business Ethics Summit. Marcus steps on stage to receive an award, Integrity in Leadership, for demonstrating accountability through example. Standing ovation. Cameras flash. He looks out at the audience and says, "I wasn't trying to be brave that day. I was trying to do my job." But sometimes doing your job means reminding others of theirs, as human beings first. He holds the plaque for a second, then sets it down. This isn't mine. It belongs to everyone who chose growth over guilt. After the ceremony, Victoria approaches quietly. No cameras. No audience. "Congratulations," she says. "Thank you. You were right, it wasn't about titles. It was about truth." Marcus smiles faintly. Truth always finds its badge. She nods, eyes softer now. "I'm learning." Then it wasn't all for nothing. They shake hands. A genuine one this time. No tension. Just mutual understanding, the quiet power of forgiveness. Injustice makes noise. But justice, it echoes. Now. A security trainee watching the viral video on his phone, Marcus's calm composure frozen mid-frame. He looks up at his reflection in the glass door and straightens his posture. "Respect goes both ways," he murmurs. "Power is proven not by how loudly you command, but by how quietly you respect." If that line hit you, share this story. Let someone else see what real accountability sounds like. And if you want more stories like this, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next chapter.